Hello, everyone. Good evening. As I begin, I'd like to ask you all if you've ever looked in the mirror and wondered who you really are, by a show of hands. Thank you. For those of you who haven't, the best way to describe the system is sort of as a feeling of self-reflection and as a journey that leaves you with a lot of questions, but sometimes with some incredibly important answers. The first time that I had this experience was my sophomore year of high school, as my family and I had just gone on a visit to India. And it started with me realizing that at the very core of myself, there are two rudimentary facts about me. Number one, I was born and raised in America. And number two, I'm ethnically South Indian. So, both my parents come from the same city in South India. And when I was younger, I could never really remember the city's name. Colombo would be my first thought, which is a popular Indian food, but no, this didn't sound right. So my follow-up to this would be Columbus, but this would confuse me even more, because why would India, out of all the countries in the world, name a city after Christopher Columbus? I think I was about 11 years old when I first finally remembered the city's name. Coimbatore. Now, there are many ways to reach Coimbatore from Chicago, so let me take you with me on the journey that my family and I took my sophomore year. We begin from O'Hare International Airport and fly to Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. From Abu Dhabi, we fly to Cochin, India, in the state of Kerala. After reaching Kerala, we get picked up by car and driven roughly 3 hours to Coimbatore, which is in the state of Tamil Nadu. One of the first things that I noticed when I stepped off the plane in the Kerala airport was the scenery around me. The airport outside Kerala had forests denser than I'd ever seen, and trees that seemed like they could touch the sky itself. But the biggest thing that I noticed was the moon. She shined down on me and enveloped the land in silver light, welcoming me to the place where I belong to, at least ethnically. And I stood there on the sidewalk outside the Cochin airport, and I stared up at the moon, and I asked myself, am I the same as everyone else here? The short answer was yes, at least physically. Although I had plain brown eyes, brown skin, and straight black hair. My face is easily forgettable in the sea of others in Coimbatore because I look just like everybody else here. Nobody would look at me and doubt for a minute that I didn't belong here, simply because I looked just like them. But the long answer was no, not mentally. Although I shared many traits and physical appearances with people of Indian origin, I didn't think or operate like them because I hadn't been raised under the same culture and country. Although I shared so many physical appearances, it was apparently painfully obvious that I had been raised somewhere else because my extended family loved to harp on the fact that I operated with the big-eyed wonder of an American exploring a different place for once. But no matter, the moon welcomed me nonetheless. And as I stood there, I asked myself, do I really belong here? As I watched the moon and I thought to myself about my true identity, it became quite unclear to me. Although I looked like people here, I didn't think or act like them, and I didn't know whether I was to act more like the people I shared physical traits with or the people that I shared a passport of origin from. For a long time, I tried to hide the two halves of myself that were correlated with different countries. I would never let people know about the other half of myself so that they wouldn't try and figure out what I was trying to hide. For a long time, this was the way that I lived my life, wondering whether looking one way forced me to act like another group of people, or sharing a passport of origin from another place made me act like them. From elementary to middle school to about halfway through high school, this was how I lived my life. But, of course, that was until something changed. And what changed was that after my family and I had returned from our trip in India, my brain started asking me questions. Questions like, Why would you think that? Or why do you say that? Or, most importantly, one day I looked myself in the mirror and I asked myself, who are you? At the time, without really knowing who I was, I recited the two basic facts about myself that I already knew. Number one, I was born and raised in America. And number two, I was ethnically South Indian. But although I knew these pieces, I didn't know how they fit together. I didn't know how the two most prevalent building blocks of my identity came together to shape my full whole. And this was a question that I wanted to know the answer to. Because if I couldn't answer it, then I was left wondering who I really was. And that was a question that plagued my mind for years. Eventually, I realized that the best way for me to fully grasp my true identity would be to accept how the two halves of myself fit together as one big whole. And so my journey began. I had to begin to find the beauty of my traditional Indian clothing. And I had to realize that being hopefully American wasn't a weakness, and rather that it was a time and place for me to learn and grow as a human being. I had to realize that my family's religion, although I had previously perceived it to be un-American, was just as real and valuable as every other religion around the globe. And as I progressed upon this journey, I not only was given the chance to reflect upon who I was, but I was given the chance to reflect on the world around me. As I came to grasp the two fundamental parts of my identity and how they fit together, I began to notice the differences in the people around me, and how each of their individual unique upbringings shaped them out to be somebody that was different than the person next to them, and how this was similar to me. And I realized that all these uniquenesses and these differences weren't things that set us apart. Rather, these uniquenesses and differences were things that united us as a globe, and when somebody stepped up and claimed their true identity, the world expanded in a multitude of amazing ways that it could never have before. When you step up and you claim who you truly are and come to terms with the different facets of your upbringing, you make the world not only a safer place, but also a more diverse and accepting place. A place that is ready to foster millions, even billions of different worldviews and perceptions. And a place that can offer us all the safety and the pride to be who we truly are. So, I would like to address you all, whether it be to people like me who had multiple parts of their own identity that they didn't know how it fit together, or whether it be to people who already know who they are and are comfortable with it. Remember that this life is filled with journeys. And although some of these journeys may look daunting, they have the power to leave us with some incredibly valuable results. And to look in the mirror and remember who you are. And if you don't know who you are, begin the journey to try and understand yourself, not just for your own benefit, but for also the world around you. Thank you.